All right, welcome back, everybody. Advanced SolidWorks. We're going to head off into weldments. Those of you that did the two projects, the card holder and the ID tag, nice job. Those of you that have not, I'll give you a little extra time. Last week was kind of weird, so uh, part of that was my fault. But but with that said, get them done. We're going to head forward into weldments. So I'm going to go through some basic weldment stuff. I'm going to make myself a little smaller. And also just make you aware of there is a weldments tutorial. If you'd like to go through it, it's kind of more complicated than I think it really needs to be for weldments. But yeah, you can look it over if you want. I honestly couldn't find the sample file when I tried to look for it. It wouldn't show up on my desktop, so I couldn't really use the sample file. But I'm just going to go through how we're going to use weldments, how I'm going to introduce it to you. We won't do a bunch in it. We'll just do this week. Then we're going to move to sheet metal. So, but you should know how it works. It's really handy for any kind of frame design. So it works really well. So what I've got on screen is similar to what you're going to build. What you're going to build is a drone carriage for a personal drone. So personal drones exist. You climb in them and you can fly them, right? So what I want you to design is just the part that you will sit in. And I'm going to have you actually put a seat in it. It can be a very basic seat. So feel free to have fun with that. This is my carriage or capsule that I will sit in. I didn't put any sidebars on it, but it really probably should have some sidebars on it. But the way you do this, obviously, is with 3D Sketch. So I'm pretty sure everyone's done 3D Sketch. We did it with sweeps. I just made a flat 3D sketch. This is not too tricky, right? Doesn't have any taper. Like maybe it should taper in a little bit. I'll let you have lots of fun with this project. It's going to be pretty undefined. You have to fit in it. So I did use measurements that I thought I could sit in it pretty comfortably. But you 3D sketch up the frame that you want to use, okay? Once you get that done, you're going to want the weldments toolbar available. So that's right-click here to get to toolbars, and then weldments, it's alphabetical, is right there, okay? So that opens weldments. You can dock it. I don't really like where it docks, so I don't dock it. I just kind of leave it out here available. Once you get your 3D sketch done, and you can always go back and add to it, or you can do a new 3D sketch. Once you get this done, like if I wanted these sidebars, I could then add those at a later time. You go to the structural member. So the way weldments works the best is with structural members. It understands the thickness of the member, the size of the member, all of those kind of things. So you have to remember when you draw the 3D sketch, it's the center line, typically the center line of the structural member. So when you punch that, all of these will be blank. I think they start with ANSI, maybe. There, it'll be like that, right? So I haven't chose a structural member yet, but the type I'm going to choose, I'm going to stay with aluminum. It's light and strong. And I'm going to use pipe. So aluminum pipe structural. And then you have to choose the size, and all of the structural aluminum pipe will be in here. There's lots of it for each one of the geometries that you choose. So I'm going to choose a 125, the lightest one. So that's this one. Okay. And once you get that, you can then pick groups. So I'm going to pick these lines out here. And you can see what it's doing. It's just adding them in. Oops, I did not want that one. So I just click it again. You got to get all my pieces, right? And that is going to be my group one. All right. It's already going to do this merge arc segment bodies. If you click it, it's just going to give you those points, right? It's going to merge them up. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Maybe you don't want to do that. So sometimes I leave that unmerged and then these will be individuals. So let's see what this does. Green check mark, and then it does it, right? So it didn't merge these. These are individual sections. Could be pieces that get made and then welded up, right? All right. So that's one group, and I'm going to do it again. So I want the two, my two sides, it's already in there, to be the same geometries. And then I'm going to go across with some lighter weight round. So I think this is 125. Yeah, it is. So this is the advantage of 3D Sketch and using structural members, right? So it's creating this for me. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm add structural members across. So across, I'm going to go with a smaller aluminum pipe. I'm going to go with the lightest weight 1 inch. And these are going to be my cross members. Okay. So that's a little smaller diameter. So what this does is it brings this structural member all the way over to, I think you can see here's the sketch point. It's bringing it all the way over here. You see it goes inside of this one, right? So once you get that done, then you have to trim things up. And you don't want to go too far because it's easy to forget or miss these trims, okay? So the trim is here, trim extend, right? Bodies to be trimmed. I want to trim this and I want to trim it to this. So it liked this one. It did not like this one. Let's see. Yeah, it looks like it's going to work, right? So then I'm going to hit, and these are different corners. So I could miter it. That's going to be really weird with round. This is the best one for round. You can try and jig it, but it's going to have an issue with that. So I'll just stick with miter and hit that. All right. So here you can see what it's done. It's made this very cool geometry. Now it's offset it. So it might be worth looking at this because I think I had an offset in it before. See how there's a gap, a little gap in there? So for welding, that's often nice. So it's right down here. I can edit it. And you can see down here, I added a weld gap. If you don't add a weld gap, it's going to be tight. So a weld gap just allows for a little more penetration in the weld. And it's often calculated into a system that will be welded. So I added a 0.02, 20,000, no, 200 thousandths weld gap. Okay. So I would continue around to trim these because this is not trimmed, right? That's not trimmed. I only did one, but that's enough to show you what I want to show you, which is the weld, right? So here in the weld toolbar, you can see there's different kinds of welds. This is adding a gusset if you had two flat plates. Here's a fillet weld. So that's typically what we're going to want to use. We can cut things. We can put holes in things. We can even extrude cut with the weldments tool. But this weld bead is really what we're aiming for, okay? And you can use weld geometry or you can use weld path. I just want to do weld path because then I can show it this path right here, just like that, right? You can give it your size of weld. So I'll stick with an 1/8 inch. And then when you hit the green check mark, the weld goes in. Now, it won't go in for you because your welds are probably turned off. So kind of goofy that that's the default, but it is. So under view, hide show, view, hide show, down here is weld bead. And for some reason, it's defaulted off like that. So when you place it, it will not show up until you go to the view, hide show, and you make it show. But then it shows, right? And that weld bead is up here in the weld folder. There it is, right? And so what's fun is in the end, you'll have a number of these weld beads and you'll be able to get a number of actual weld distance, which could give you information on how long it would take to weld it up, right? So that is 4.37 inches, that weld bead. So that's around 1.5 inches, right? So that's the circumference calculation. Hopefully it's correct. So that's weldments, right? Get it all welded up for me. So you are creating a carriage for a drone. And when I put the assignment up, there'll be a little image of a personal drone that you can kind of look at. But you're gonna use your own dimensions, and you can even use your own structural members. I don't care what you use. Don't go too big, it's unnecessary. But in the end, you can actually add a sensor. And wants to rebuild here of mass properties and get the weight. Check. So 5.21 pounds. This thing is super light. Is it strong enough? I don't know. You'll need to get strength of materials and do the calculations yourself in the future. So, all right. Good luck with it. Have fun with it. Well, let me know if there's any problems.